I got my first real six string, bought it at the 5 and dime, played until my fingers bled. It was the summer of '69. Never adolescent. What's up, my nobodies? I'm David, and this is Nobody Wants to Hear It, and I'm all alone today because Eric had better places to be.
I mean, for me, I always think of a friendship as like, if someone asks you to do something, you're always there to do it, kind of thing.
That's not you. You're always there to say you'll do it. So anyway, I thought today I would talk a little bit about my love and passion for the DC universe in days of yore. And to do so, I wanted to bring special attention to these two books right here, which are covered in ants. No, these are Justice League of America, or JLA as we called it in the Strap for Time 90s, New World Order, and American Dreams. These would have been volumes 1 and 2, though they don't mention the reading order anywhere on the covers. These were the first trades I ever owned. This one specifically, I got it from my friend Ivan when he was going through a cool period and needed money to do cool things on the weekend. So he got popular and I reaped all the benefits. Of course, I also picked up DC versus Marvel, the trade from him then too. And Wolverine beats Lobo in that. So you win some, you lose some, I guess. So this would have been my first real introduction to the DC universe. I read comics for a few years previous, but almost entirely X-Men and Spider-Man. My only real knowledge of the DC universe came from the Batman animated series, the Superman animated series, and old remnants of the Super Friends cartoon I can vaguely remember from the 80s. But when I came on with with this one, specifically the single issues, in I guess it was the summer of 1997, the DC Universe was a very, very different place. As you can see, Superman was blue. Green Lantern was replaced by I believe it was an Irish-Mexican comic book artist named Kyle Rayner. The Flash was a new guy as well. He was Wally West, Barry Allen's former sidekick. Aquaman had no hand. He had long hair and a beard. And specifically in this volume, Green Arrow's illegitimate son, who I believe was a biracial Buddhist monk, even in his early teens, he joins the roster. So the DC universe at the time seemed to me to be such an alive and like ever-changing place. The Flash would never be Barry Allen again. The Flash would someday be somebody else, and he would be somebody else, and he'd be somebody else. I even believed, because Batman at this time was on his third Robin. The first one grew up and became Nightwing. The second one was murdered by the Joker. And the third, Batman had real hopes that he was finally training his predecessor. So I even believed that someday Tim Drake would become Batman. I didn't really understand the market side of things. I didn't get that Superman couldn't be blue forever. I certainly didn't get that one day market forces would bring Hal Jordan back to replace the very cool Kyle Rayner. And you can never really get those feelings back again. I'll never be able to feel the legacy of the DC Universe the way I used to. Anyway, so these two trades were the reformation of the JLA for the late 90s, as it were, written by Grant Morrison, of course, and primarily drawn by Howard Porter, which looks extremely dated by today's standards, especially in some of the costume designs and what have you. I mean, just look at the HyperClan, for Christ's sake. Good Lord. But, I mean, there are moments that really shine, even if they're directly adjacent to moments that, don't so much. So when I first came across the individual issues of this book, back when it came out, when they would have been on newsstands, since there were no comic shops in my area, I liked comics. I did, but I thought of them as something you did when there was nothing on TV. Like, I didn't think that highly of the medium, so I guess you could say this book ruined my life in no uncertain terms. In the very first JLA story I got, which I guess would have been issue 6, they fight the forces of heaven There's a rogue band of angels attempting a second coup, a la Lucifer. I think the main angel's name is Asmodel or something. And the Justice League is taxed with repelling this invasion of literally immortal demigods. And from there, I mean, and with every story, Grant Morrison was tasked with raising the stakes and giving them somebody new to fight. It was pretty wild. And while they're not the origin of my love of Aquaman, they certainly amplified it to the nth degree. You have these fucking amazing scenes. Aquaman and Wonder Woman fighting manga robots. Aquaman being pursued across the rooftops of New York by a rogue angel and smashing down through a rooftop pool to fill up the inside of a apartment building with water. Early on in the Angel story, the bad guys part the seas Moses style, and with the two walls of water on either side, they look over their shoulder and they see like this torpedo-ish thing in the distance come rocketing at them, and then Aquaman slams into them with his hook hand. Oy, it's good shit. This book is also the origin in many ways of the super competent Batman, the Batman that people always claim can beat anybody. It kind of comes from Grant Morrison in this book especially, where you have Batman more or less single-handedly defeating, 4 or 5 White Martians, 4 or 5 Superman power level bad guys. But the thing I really wanted to address, wanted to talk about, wanted to give a little bit of love, is the final story in which Grant Morrison first, as far as I know, comes up with a concept that he would toy a lot with in his work in the DC Universe down the road, that a fundamental property of the DC Universe is that good always wins. Evil can't triumph in the DC Universe. And an old Justice League bad guy called The Key figures this out. And he devises a plan that uses their inevitable victory to bring about his own. A machine that runs on the mental energy created by their victory. That will ascend him into godhood. And he has the entire Justice League captured in their base on the moon. And their new recruit, the teenage Green Arrow, 14 or 15 years old, just a little bit older than I would have been at the time, has gone up to his first membership meeting to find the entire Justice League missing and captured in these sleep booths. And the story's intercut with all these dreams the Justice Leaguers are forced to be stuck in. In a lot of ways, this Green Arrow was created as sort of a remedy to the hokiness of the old Green Arrow, with his boomerang arrows and his net arrows and his concussive arrows, which by the 90s were thought of as quite silly, unfortunately. The story ends up being a really great gap bridger between the hokiness of old and the super seriousness of new, where immediately upon arrival, the young Green Arrow has his regular arrows all destroyed on him. So he has to break into the Justice League trophy room and pull out his dad's old trick arrows and learn to use those on the fly as he's fighting a guy who's already taken down the entire Justice League. He tells himself to improvise, and then he looks at what he has to deal with. Handcuff arrows, net arrows, boxing glove arrows. Dad, oh dad, you're going to be the death of me. My mind was blown at that line. I mean, an entire fucking world opened up to me. I never wanted to leave it, and I never wanted this era of DC to end. But, I mean, of course, all things do. I mean, it's no secret that while I did enjoy a lot of the New 52, by and large, it wasn't aimed at me. Or maybe it was aimed at my demographic, but it wasn't aimed at me specifically. So I didn't get a ton out of it. But I'm hopeful, and maybe that hope is ill-placed, just like the Batman versus Superman movie, which already is getting some uncomfortable news in the press with people saying insiders are worried about it. Yeah. It's hard for me not to believe in the natural epicness that happens when these characters come together. And we've never seen it on screen before. And I'm so fucking excited, you guys. I'm so fucking excited that I'm going to come to all your houses and punch you all in the face. But that's the thing. I almost had to be disappointed because with superhero comics, with these large universes, I'm chasing this feeling. I'm chasing impossible nostalgia and belief in a real place. And it's just, no matter how good or how bad the Superman versus Batman movie is going to be, it can't be what things were to me when I was 14. And I don't know what to do about that. These trades are so old. They're so pre-comics internet, and there was so little comics press that one of the pull quotes on the back is actually by the writer himself. Like, you can't review your own book, Grant Morrison. You can't do that. This one doesn't have any at all. Hey guys, thanks so much for sitting through all of that. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. Let me know if you missed Derek more than words can say, just like I did. He'll be back next week, I promise. I borderline promise. I promise. I'd also love to know if any of you guys have read this particular run, or if you have a similar little chunk of comics from your past that you've been chasing, trying to recapture that feel of. I'd love to read stories like that as well. Please, I click the big red subscribe button down here-wise, and click like if you liked it, and just turn away in silence if you didn't, and do nothing else. Do nothing else. Just leave things as they are. Yeah, and that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.